Do you want me to introduce you?
Sure.
What's up, Rock Camp bass players? This is our bass player meetup on Zoom. And this week we had special guest, director Hillary, on the bass, teaching us how to look up covers and learn them. And which was an awesome, amazing lesson. I learned from it. I learned about a bass player that I only knew a little bit about, but learned a lot more. And I'm sure you'll talk about that. But make some noise for Hillary.
Woo! I'll make noise for myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Talia asked me to teach a bass lesson. I actually learned a lot from just teaching a lesson. And I think that was a good reminder for me that some of the best ways that I've advanced, I typically play drums, but some of the best ways I've advanced as a drummer is just to teach another person how to do something, because then I have to really think about how do I know how to do that and where did I learn that? So at the beginning of the lesson, I talked about bass mentors, because for me, like playing bass, I grew up with a grandma who played a bass. She actually had a 6-string bass, which is very rare to see. But when her and my grandfather got married, they loved each other so much they wanted to spend all this time together. So he was a guitar player, and he bought her a Fender 6-string bass, and it's strung exactly like a guitar. And I think a lot of people know this, but maybe you don't, that the bass, these 4 strings on the bass are the same as the first 4 strings on a guitar. So it's E, A, D, G is the standard tuning for a bass. On a guitar, it goes E, A, D, G, and then there's 2 more strings. That's a B and then another E. So when you're playing with your band, sometimes you can watch the guitar player's hand, and if it's on the 3rd fret of the E string, you can also be on the 3rd fret of the E string, and you can kind of cheat that way and watch what your guitar player's doing. Or you can ask them, what chord they're playing, and you can kind of move your hand around. It'll be pretty similar to what they're doing if they're playing like bar chords and moving up and down the neck. So yeah, it was pretty normal for me to see a woman playing music, which isn't necessarily how everybody grows up, but she learned how to play. My grandfather taught her, but a 6-string bass, the one that she had, it was just the strings were a little bit heavier gauge, so they had like this lower, kind of tone. So yeah, she played a lot of old country and swing and waltzes and polkas, and they were in a dance band. So I didn't even know about this when I was a kid. I learned growing up that they would exchange, like there's a certain number for the dances that happen in order at a dance. So there's going to be a waltz, there's going to be a polka. You can trade your dance card with another person and like trade partners that way. It's just a whole culture that I was like, wow, this is a whole scene. Well, she passed away a few years ago, and I have a lot of recordings still of her playing, which is just awesome to be able to hear her voice. And she sang too and played bass. And then about, I don't know, how long ago was this? 15 years ago, I was married, and the guy I married was a bass player. And I learned a lot about bass just from being in a relationship with him. I don't think that early on when I listened to music, I could really pick out what the bass was playing. But dating someone who played bass and then marrying someone who played bass, I really like started to listen to the bass more and understand like how important that is with your band. And I'm wondering, Beelin, since you've started playing bass just a little bit, kind of dabbling, have you noticed when you listen to music the bass part a lot more?
Oh, absolutely. Every
Yeah.
song I hear, I'm like, oh, I can hear the bass, and I listen to the melody of it, and I tell people now, I'm like, all I hear is the bass now.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's like a blessing and a curse, right? Like it's good because then it helps you improve as a player. As you hear those things, then you mimic them later. You can
Yeah.
try to play something that someone else is playing. So that's really
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
Another thing, when I started playing bass a little bit more, sometimes I would turn up the bass on my EQ. Like in your car, you can turn up the bass really loud. If you turn up the bass parts of a song and turn down the treble, you really hear the thumpy part coming through more. So you can kind of pick out a rhythm of what's being played. So yeah, did you have a chance to look up, Beelin? I know you're the only one here, so you're gonna be put on the spot. Did you look up any bass players or songs after watching the lesson to kind of get an idea of like some bass players you might not know about?
I just kind of, I mean, I learned the boots are made for walking song.
Hmm.
Well, I didn't learn it all the way, but just what's her name? Nancy?
Nancy
No,
Sinatra.
yeah, Sinatra.
Yeah,
But other than that, I haven't really looked up any other
yeah,
actual
that's
bass
fine.
players.
That's
Yeah.
fine. Talia, do you have any bass players that you idolize, or I mean, it could be male, female, trans, non-binary, doesn't matter.
Well, you had talked about Carol Kay and just
yeah.
knowing the amount of music that she's played on that's legendary. And typically you wouldn't think that a woman was doing that, because back in those days, in the 50s and 60s, it was extremely rare. And then also I just like, Miss, I'm going to totally say her name wrong, but Michelle Neglidicello. You
Yeah.
know how to say it,
Yeah.
Hillary.
Indigliocello. Yeah. I had to
Thank
say it a
you.
lot before I learned it.
And I found out from her from KRCL, you know, from usually
Mhm.
watching videos and being blown away. But and then I have probably one of my favorite bass players is Bob Marley's bass player,
Mm-hmm.
because what
Oh.
he plays is nothing like you would think
Mhm.
what he
Mhm.
would play in music, and it's
Yeah.
completely on the off beats. It's completely fresh and different, and so I definitely dig that the most.
Cool.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's really
Iman?
fun to look at, you know, different bass players. And you know, when you're in this band that you're formed with your family and like trying to write a song, it could be pretty overwhelming to be like, well, what am I going to play on the bass? But
Mhm.
listening to other songs, and especially I'm glad you brought up Carol Kay, Talia, because I learned about Carol Kay from my grandmother, who said, you know, hey, you know, you heard the Beach Boys, most of those songs, the bass lines were written by a woman. And I was like, no way. Like, I didn't believe my grandma. I thought she was just trying to be cool. But I looked it up and was like, wow. And Carol Kay, you know, started out as a guitar player and was asked to sit in on a session to play bass, and said yes instead of freaking out and panicking and saying no. And, you know, that reminds me a lot of rock camp, because this is easy to say no to. Like, no, that's going to be hard. I don't think I can do it. But she just went for it and turned out. And another thing about her is just like the fact that she played guitar made her a very different, unique kind of bass player. So if you're not a bass player, there are a lot of things that you know how to do that are going to come through on the bass, you know, and different music influences that you've listened to in your lifetime, and those are just going to come through naturally. And all you need is just a little bit of help to be like, okay, I liked this song and how this bass, so where do I start on the neck? And that's kind of, you know, with my style of learning, since I'm not a bass player that plays a lot, I usually get a cover song thrown at me that from a band, like I'm in the Femme, and I play bass a lot in the Femme because we have what, 3, 4 drummers. I think we have 4 drummers in the Femme, so I ended up playing bass a lot more. And you know, Talia helped me a lot, and Sophia helped me a lot. Just find out like where to start on the neck, and you know what notes those are. I did a lot of just like Google searches for songs, finding different. And I think that that's one of the things I wanted to get across in my lesson is that if you Google a song that you want to play, the first bass line that you find might not be the one that's going to work for you. It might be the most complicated, you know, the hardest. But how to like simplify that and just play those root notes and those elements of the song that like get you through the song and get people dancing to it. So to not overwhelm yourself with like, oh, this cover is so complicated and I have to play every note. In the last lesson for vocals, we were talking about Chain of Fools, and Talia was saying it's all in just one key, right? Isn't it? Is it an A?
It's in C
Oh, in
minor.
C.
Yeah.
C minor. Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, just knowing that it's in C minor, you know, finding a C on your neck on the bass guitar, I'd probably start on the A string. So open A,
Open
just
A.
the second string. Yep. And then the first fret is A sharp.
On the A.
Yep.
Uh-huh. And then move it up to the next fret. That's a B. So that's second fret on your A string. Second
string.
fret, second string. Yep.
Okay.
So that's a B. And then we move it up, and there's your C. So your third fret on your A string is a C. So if you were going to play Chain of Fools, just playing that C the entire time would work on that song.
Oh.
So then it's just about finding the rhythm. So when you hear like chain, 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 right? Like what's the bass doing in that song?
Yeah.
And I can kind of like without even, I haven't heard that song for a minute, but I kind of know the bass is like dun 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 dun.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
know exactly, it's probably not that exact rhythm. But you can just play a C the whole time. You could play you know, a pattern over and over again. So I see, Talia, you're getting your bass out. And maybe you can help us.
It doesn't matter either way. Yeah, I'm trying to get my strap. I'm not sitting down, which makes it hard.
Yeah.
Like you just said, you could just chug. They call it chugging if you when you stay on the same note, and you kind of just play. You could even play quarter notes to it. Play eighth notes like do 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 do, and it's kind of just the way you play the note. Yeah. I don't know if I'm in tune. I'm not in tune. Oh goodness.
You're good. You're good.
Change battery.
I'm like springing this on you. I'm
Well,
like,
I can
tell
tell
you.
there's change on it.
I know on the last bass lesson we had, where she said when there's a guitar chord, you can kind of get the bass notes from that, right? Because I'm trying to figure out how am I going to write this song? how are we going to put the song together? Yeah.
And I think, when we were talking in vocals about Chain of Fools, the fact that it's just all in one key, not in one key, one chord, C, that you could play it just by playing C the whole time. You could also learn a couple little patterns, just like we learned for These Boots Are Made for Walking,
right.
and throw those in there. And same with your guitar player, like they can just play a C, every time. And your keys player can just play a C. So it takes a lot of the, freaking out about changing chords and how we're going to do it together out of it. Talia, you.
Well, and Beelan too, once you, the other instruments maybe decide what they're playing, we'll show you at a band practice notes that you can play.
Okay.
We can totally break it down for you. But remember when Aaron talked about the pentatonic scale?
Yes, I was going to ask about that. And some people call them different shapes or something?
Well, it's just basically the same shape or the same space between your notes.
Oh, okay, that's what it is.
So if you're playing a C pentatonic, you would play your C.
C.
And then you can move up to, it's called an E flat. It's on your sixth fret. So C to 6. There you go. Yeah. And then you could play your 3rd fret.
The next line. The
5th fret on your D string.
5th fret.
Yep. And then the same pattern on the next string, 3 and 5.
And then.
Yep.
Are we down there? 5.
Yeah, on your 5. So if you're playing in C, you could play as long as when you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, you want to be playing a C generally, but you could go like 1. And that I'm doing my D string on my 6th or 5th fret.
On the 5th, okay.
So I'm going from my C on my A string, which is the 3rd fret, and then going to my D string and playing the 5th.
On the 5th.
And then right above that on your G.
And then
another, on your G string, which is your highest string on your 5th fret, or the other way, your high string.
Oh, high.
Yeah. That's another C.
Oh, okay. I've got little stickers on the back of mine. Yeah.
So a lot of times bass players, it's called the octave, where you play this note, you skip this middle string,
okay,
play the high one too.
Oh, I forgot.
Yeah. We'll send you this pattern too, Beep, so you can feel, because it's overwhelming, I know. And the way I memorized it was just 3, 6, 3,
6,
5, 3, 5.
5. Okay. And then you go down the strings. Okay.
Yep. And then you can go down, da, 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 da.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And if we were, I think of it sometimes like Battleship, like I was saying, or Basilship. So if you were to remember it, like Talia was saying, it's A3. So A string, that's your 2nd string, 3rd fret, A3, then A6.
Okay, A6.
Yep,
here.
right there. And then D3. So next string up, D3, and then D5.
5.
And then G3. So the next string up is G. Yep, G3. And then G5.
G5. Oh, okay.
So if you were to write that down just as a note for yourself, like 8, or it doesn't matter what string you start on, but for this one, we'll say for a C pentatonic, A5, or sorry, A3, A3, A6,
6,
D3,
D3,
D5,
5,
G3,
3, and
G5.
5. Okay.
Yeah.
Now it's getting more clear.
So any string you want to start on, let's say we decided to start on our E string, our lowest string, and we went to the 3rd fret. So we go E, F, F sharp, G. So now we're starting on G. So we could play G3, or sorry, this is E3, E6.
E3, E6.
Mm-hmm. And then A3.
A5.
And then A5. Yep, you got it. And then D3. And last one, D5.
Okay.
So same pattern, just different starting place. So that would be a G pentatonic versus a C pentatonic.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so wherever you start your pentatonic scale, it's the same pattern.
You do the same pattern.
Yeah,
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah,
it's not an illusion, right?
It's not an illusion. It's just memorizing a pattern. And sometimes, like, I'm 41 years old and it's hard for me to remember a lot of things.
Yeah.
I feel like the kids, you know, they've got that advantage where they're memorizing times tables all the time, right? But like, I was able to remember those things. I remembered my alphabet, all that stuff. So it is possible. It's just about repetition. Talia kind of taught me about like saying it out loud when your fingers on that string. So on our E3, that's a G, right? And then what's our 6th string? You know, like I still have to go G sharp, A, A sharp, or B flat. Yeah. So I'm still working on like remembering which is which when it comes to the strings.
Okay.
So if let's say you're working on writing your original song and it sounds like you guys have got some lyrics going, at some point someone's going to say, okay, this song is going to start with this chord, right? And it might be, let's say like the Rock Camp song, it starts in E. So that's pretty easy for you to start in E, and then you know which strings will quote unquote like fit in the song. And there's so many more strings that work and notes that work, but it's a good way to just get started.
Okay.
Another song I was thinking about, I was just thinking about songs that I've had to learn and like how did I learn them. But with the Femme, one of the songs I learned was one of Talia's songs that you've probably heard, which is Love Is. And that song has just got a couple, I mean, it's pretty simple. Maybe Talia, do you want to walk us through where the different notes are? I'm asking you because I'm like, I'm going to forget where they are.
You got it. So it starts in F sharp, which is going to be on your second, it's E2.
E2.
E2. So that's your F sharp. Now you play your pentatonic here. That's in this song, you can play any of those pentatonic notes. So it would be E2, it would be E5, it'd be A2, it'd be A4, D2, D4, and then honestly, you can play those high, your G2 and your G4 as well. So you can play all those notes, and that works in it. And Hillary's going to pull it up and kind of show you the groove of it, because most of it, you just play that F sharp. That's the main part of it. And then every now and again, you could throw in any of these other notes as like an accent.
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to play the beginning of the song just to get the first little groove part. Can you hear that okay? So you can hear that boom, boom, ba-doop, doop, ba-doop, boo, boop. You don't have to play the ba-doop, boop, boo, boo. You can just play the dun, dun, right? The F sharp, that was that first, your E string, 2nd fret. Yep, F sharp. So our first 2 notes on Love Is just dun, 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 dun. And as you get better as a bass player, you can add the other thing. Dun, dun. I can't do that part yet, but when I play it with the Femme, that's all that I'm doing. I'm doing a lot of dancing to make myself like look cool, but I'm just holding down that F sharp most of the song. Just. And did you hear that extra little? What I did is just lift up my finger off the E string on that 2nd fret and play an open E. So open E, F sharp, F sharp. So.
That's my favorite trick in the book. Just
lifting up your
thing. You know, just that little note gives movement to the song.
Oh, got it.
Dun, 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 So yeah, you can practice doing dun, dun, dun.
And you can do it every other time. You can do it every third time. It's kind of like what you're feeling, you know. And Hillary too. Some of the notes, if you want to, you could do the bum bum. Oh, I'm in the wrong key. Sorry. Bum bum.
Like slide up. You're talking about pentatonic
And I'm
scale.
just going to my A string on my 4th fret because that's in my pentatonic. So I'm just adding a little taste of that. And beep, it's easier if you keep your pointer finger down on your F sharp and start to work on. It's okay for now if it's easier to slide. That's you can do that too, but that eventually your wrist is gonna get really tired doing that. Okay. Yeah, there you go. So just try and do that groove and add one note somewhere. See
yeah,
how
so yeah, I'll play along to it until we get to the next change. So you can just play along the dun dun on your bass as I play this. So let me play the track again.
Love is everlasting, ever living,
F sharp,
ever loving,
F sharp,
and ever giving. Love is everlasting, ever living, ever loving, and ever giving. We're only
stays
human,
the same even when it
full of
goes in the verse.
emotion. Amen. Don't expect it different. We're only doing what we're doing. What I know is we only love.
So there's a change there.
Yeah.
So that whole first part, we've played this song for 49 seconds and we've been on that F sharp groove, right? And you can see when you listen to the song how much Talia's bass player Josh can do with just that F sharp, right? So that's something to work up to, learning little patterns and things to do. But just to play along with the song, that F sharp, holding off your A. Sometimes when I would play, I would slide down. So I would start right by my E, like two frets above my E. So that's the 14th fret.
Okay.
And I start there. Yeah, of E. So your 12th fret is those double dots. So 12, 13, 14, right? So start there. That's an F sharp. And then slide down to your F sharp.
Oh, wow.
So you're always in tune with that. So boom, boom, boom.
Oh.
Boom, 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 like that. So that's just something else you can do. It's pretty simple, that adds some texture and some flavor to that, because that first part is a pretty long part, and you might get bored just going.
Oh, got
but
it.
You take your finger off, changes it a little bit. Use that 4th fret on your A string. Sometimes add that in there as a little flavor. And then the next part, Talia, what note is that? Let's play Battleship, Basal Ship.
All right, it's an E flat. And because our bass doesn't go lower than E, we have to play what's a higher E flat. So it is on your 6th fret so it's A6.
A6, okay.
A6 is your E flat. But also another E flat, which I want to tell you about, is on your 11th fret. So E11. E11.
So right above those double dots.
Yeah.
That's kind of easy to find because you look for the double dots and just go one above it.
Yeah.
And if it's an E flat, it is 1/2 step down from an E. And if we memorize that the double dot is an E, which is 12, you'll know E flat means, oh, that's a 1/2 step down from my E. So yeah. And you can do it either place. Like I think Josh goes in between both. When I play it, I do both. And Hillary, I think you have done both, like slide up there and slide down.
Yeah, sometimes I play my A6, that E flat, and sometimes I play this one. And you can just listen to the difference. This is a lower tone, right? When you play it on your E string. And then when I play it on my A string, it sounds a little higher. This has got a little more punch to it when you play it on E11. So I'm going to back up the song just a tiny bit so we can hear when that change happens. So as a bass player, you're playing your F sharp and you know it's coming because you've heard the song. You're like, something's about to change. So you can start to think about and kind of look at your neck of like, where's my finger going to go next? And you got to remember it's going to be either A6 or E11. So I'm going to back it up a little and we'll play through that part.
Don't expect it different. We'll only do it what we're doing. What I know is we only love. And so many
A6.
souls left
Back to F
untold.
sharp.
Never to be told.
F sharp again.
Have someone
Back to
hold.
A6 or
And so many
E11.
dreams never to see the light.
Back to F sharp.
Oh man, but it just seemed right. Love is everlasting.
Still F sharp.
Ever living, ever loving, and ever giving. Love is everlasting. Ever living, ever loving, and ever giving.
Still on F
In
sharp.
every time.
That's why I love this song.
In every person, they got their reasons. You better stop. Better stop
Try one of those slides.
believing in the power of you.
Back to
Keep on
A6.
dreaming. Self-doubt. Here come them
Back to F
dark
sharp.
clouds. Let it rain on your pain. Let it all
Back
fall
to
down.
A6.
Oh, be
E11.
brave. It's okay.
F sharp.
Oh man, let it all out. Love is.
You just play that all day. That's the whole song right there as far as just the root. We'll call that like the root notes, like the basic groove of the song.
Uh-huh.
And then from there, you can always add some flavor on there.
Yeah, I can kind of see how you can do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
the little.
And I think some of the best bass lines that I've ever heard are the simplest. Even Carol Kay's bass lines that, are a little faster, like she's playing with a pick. I don't know
Oh.
if you've tried playing with a pick at all yet on your bass.
Yeah.
I don't play with a pick very much on my bass, but the band that I'm in for Slay at Home, the person that plays bass in our band has played bass before, and they're always playing with a pick, and I'm like, wow, that sounds so like sharp and crisp and clean. It's just a different sound, and sometimes it can help you play a little like faster if you want to play fast for some reason on your song.
Okay.
But yeah, do you have any questions about anything that from practicing this week or anything we've gone over today so far?
Well, you answered the question with the pentatonic shape,
Cool.
so I'll work on that.
Nice.
And then adding, a little extra, like lifting your finger off.
Yeah, I think at least guitar players, maybe it's the same for bass, it's called a hammer-on. So it's like, I think of it as like you play the note and then you hammer on it with your finger. So you're using that finger to hammer on.
So that does a sound as well.
And you can even see that like when I just lift my finger up and off, if I push hard enough,
Uh-huh.
I'm playing two different notes, right? Playing F sharp, then E as I pull off. So
yeah.
hammer-ons are cool. And sometimes when you play that open note and then you play the hammer-on, it's not going to fit in your song exactly. It's going to be like a weird sounding note. So it doesn't always work, but it's always good to try it. And that other trick that Talia was talking about was an octave. So let's say we've got our finger on E2, that's our F sharp. We're going to skip the next string, so skip the A, and then the next string over the D string, we're going to play our fourth fret. So those are
like
the same note. Yeah, so you're going to play E2,
Yeah.
and then you're going to play D4. And that's the same note, just a low and a high, but they're both F sharps. So sometimes when you're playing bass, you can just go between those two notes. Whoops.
Oh, I see. You just go between them.
Yeah, and so it adds, it's the same exact note, but it's just a different voicing of the note, a different sound for it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
A lot of disco music, but it also reminds me of Mario, like does that.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Oh.
Yeah, Mario. That's a good way to put it.
and it's like funny in disco, but it adds so much, and you're playing the same note, but your ear is hearing that ping pong between the two, and it's rad. Yeah,
like a polka.
Exactly, Hillary.
Boop, bop, boop, bop, boop, bop, boop, bop.
It's polka, it's blues.
It's punk. Punk rock is
Punk.
very polka. It's the same thing. Just
And honestly, most of these musical genres have the same notes. It is just how you kind of play them is what makes it different.
Oh,
Real quick, so if we were to do the same song in reggae,
mhm.
it would be like a 1 and 2 and 3.
Oh.
And with reggae, you don't always play on the 1. A lot of times you're gonna play, so like the song will be like 1, 1, 1,
Wow.
1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You know, it's funny because they don't play it in the timing that you would. So I urge you to listen to some maybe Troy Kingy or some reggae music you like, Beep.
Yeah, I like island reggaes mostly.
Yeah, island reggae is amazing.
Yeah. Mhm.
And a lot of times it's like 3 and 4 chord songs, you know?
Yeah.
So if there's something that you hear and you want to learn, we definitely, between the 3 of us here, could, help you figure it out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
Hillary, I enjoyed your lesson. I really enjoyed how you brought up guitar tabs, bass tabs, and being able to look that up. So Beep, that's something you can also look up songs. And you other bass players watching this, look up the bass tabs. Hillary, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so if you can't find a bass tab for a song, you can almost always find like the guitar chords or the like piano chords. So if you just look up any song name and the word chords, it's going to show you like what the chords are. And then as a bass player, if there's not like a tab that's written out that's showing you what positions to play on your fretboard, the notes that the guitar player is going to play. So if they start on a G, you can play the same thing. Your 3rd fret E is a G. So you could at least keep up with when they make a change, when they change from G to say C. So let's try that. So our E string 3rd fret is G, and then our A string 3rd fret is C. So going back and forth from like G to C is pretty easy, right? So let's say that they look up a song and the chords go from G and then they go to C, and then the 3rd chord, let's say it's a D. You can easily, from your C, go up 1 half step or 1 fret, that's C sharp, and then 1 more is D. So your A string 5th fret is D. So let's say your cover is G, C, D. Right there, you've got all 3 notes that will just at least be your starting point. So when they switch to a G, you switch to a G, and then when you're feeling a little more comfortable, throw in that pentatonic scale. So do like a G and then your 6th fret on the E string, or your 3rd fret on the next string over. So just finding that starting point all comes from just it sounds like on the bass that you have, there's little stickers that show you what's what. So either looking at those stickers or counting up, starting with an open string like E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, up the neck. Or just start to try to memorize it, which I'm still obviously haven't memorized. But Talia can like look at a neck and go to like, the 7th fret on the E string and just know exactly what note that is, right? And the more that you do it, the more that you just know where it is, just like the color blue. Someday we had to learn that back in kindergarten or before, and we still know it. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm excited to see what cover, and the reason for doing a cover, I mean, it seems like in 6 weeks it's hard, like learn the rock camp song, learn a cover, write a song. It's like when we were talking about doing this camp, we kind of threw around the idea of this cover song because maybe that's too much for people. But if you choose a cover song that's easy to play, it, like Pepper Rose was saying, it's really a good way to learn how to write your own song because you're already playing a song that you like and music that you like. And maybe you play the same rhythm, but you're going to use different notes. Or maybe you use the same notes as the cover song that you learned, but you change the rhythm a little bit. So it's a good way for everyone to hear something and play along to it and then, incorporate maybe even just one chord from it into your song. So we're hoping that kind of helps everybody in their songwriting and also just learning to play together. Because starting from scratch and learning to play an original song together that you haven't written is really hard because you haven't heard it and nobody has. So embrace learning a cover song, and that goes for everybody watching this bass video. Pick a simple song, and if you think of a song you like a Lizzo song, look it up. If it has a bunch of sharps and flats and there's 8 chords in the song, maybe not play that one right now. Maybe play that one a year from now, maybe 6 months from now. You definitely want to look for songs that have 3 chords, maybe 4, and chords like as a band that when you look at them together, you all either know how to play those chords or you can easily ask Talia, your band manager, or one of your instructors how to play it, and then you know. So
Okay.
those are my tips for covers.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah. And I think we're just about out of time. So bye, y'all.
Thank
for
you.
showing up, Elin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, B. It's good
Thanks,
to hang out.
guys.
Yeah, see you soon.
See ya.